Right. Hello, folks. So, welcome back to YouTube channel. I'm back with Simon, and today we are going to. Right, so Simon's getting a thing. Hello. The Today we are going to talk about a bit about nutrition, mostly about pre-workout nutrition. So, how do you basically prepare yourself for your workouts with a sense of a food approach? And the reason for this is Simon had a workout on Monday that didn't quite go as well as he thought it would go, and I wanted to explore that with him a bit. So I'll pop it over to him. So Simon, what happened with your workout on Monday?
Yeah, so went to the gym, sort of first thing in the morning, got about 7 o'clock, something like that. Didn't have anything to eat, not too much to drink beforehand. Kind of a bit of a throwback to when I used to train in my early 20s.
Some foreshadowing there.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yes. And so yeah, I got down the gym, started doing some goblet squats. I think I'd moved on to the next exercise and just started feeling quite dizzy, quite faint, and a bit nauseous, bit sick. So not feeling good at all. And I think bit of a throwback to my younger days where I used to train first thing in the morning without eating anything. Seemed to be okay back then, but I think it was a good lesson that perhaps just because it worked 20-30 years ago doesn't mean it's going to work this time around.
Yeah. So basically, your last meal before you did that workout would have been like your dinner the night before. Would that be?
Yeah, about 6:30 the night before. Yeah.
So when it comes to strength training, so strength training is what we call a high force production activity. Okay, and when we produce high amounts of force, we use we have to have an energy source for that. Okay? And that comes from within our muscles cells. Initially, that's a short-acting energy system called your creatine phosphate system. That's very high force output. The kind of substrate below that is called your glycolytic system, which is basically burning blood sugar, and then that's a bit longer lasting, but not quite as high force output as your creatine phosphate system. So your creatine phosphate system will last anywhere from 5 to 15 seconds, depending on your age, how well trained you are, whether you take a creatine supplement, of various different factors. Your glycolytic or your kind of sugar burning system can last from 30 seconds to up to 2.5, 3 minutes. That is what you will feel when if you ever done like a bout of high intensity cardio, like for example, like people you'll see on that people might have experienced this before, like you're on like the assault bike or on a rower or something, and the muscle starts to burn. That's the waste products of that burning of basically burning the oxidization of the blood sugar and the glycogen in your muscles. That's the waste product of that increasing the pH or decreasing. I can't remember. Yeah, lower pH is more acidic, isn't it? Yeah. So lower pH, so lowering the pH, making your muscles more acidic, basically, and that's the burn that you get associated with that. Okay, so there's a bit of chemistry for you. And then the layer below that would be your fat oxidization, your lipid oxidization. So that's like the base layer. That's the energy system I'm using right now to talk to you. Okay, it's the base layer. It's what we use to hang the washing out or walk down the street. It's like that very long-lasting but very low force production energy system. Okay, so you have these three kind of layers. They all work all the time. Okay, they're not. It's not like you. They're not. Like one turns off and two are off and one are on. They're all working all the time, all in unison. Just it depends what the tilt of each one will go to, depending on the activity you're doing. So if you're doing like Olympic lifting, you're going to be using a lot of creatine phosphate energy system because you're being that explosive power to clean the bar up to your shoulders or get the bar overhead for your snatch. For strength training, you kind of use a mixture of the creatine phosphate and the glycolytic energy system. That is why as you go through a set, the reps will slow down because you've kind of used, so your first couple of reps might be really fast and really strong because you're still not used up. Like think of it like a fuse on like a stick of dynamite. Once that fuse runs out, obviously you don't explode, but once that fuse runs out, you've got to then wait for it to replenish to get back up for it to use again. So if you're using a heavy set of 5 deadlifts, the first couple might feel pretty strong and explosive, but then the third one starts to slow down slightly and start to slow down. And then by the time you get to the fifth one, you're 15 to 20% slower in terms of the bar speed, in terms of like meters per second on the bar than you were compared to the first one. So that's how that applies practically in real life. Okay. So if you don't have a good enough store of blood, either blood sugar, so basically carbs in your body, either circulating in your blood, so blood sugar. Obviously, we don't want that to be chronically elevated because that's diabetes. But it's okay for it to be high for a little bit of time because you're basically using it up as fast as you're intaking it. Okay. With you having your last meal the night before and then sleeping for, trying to sleep for 8 hours, you've now gone upwards of close to 12 hours without consuming any carbohydrate. Now, your brain actually runs on carbohydrates, so you're using carbohydrates all the time. So now we've went that long time without replenishing those stores to then use in the morning. And especially if you've had a kind of a low carbohydrate day before that, and maybe not eating as much as you could, and then you're just compounding that error into the next day. Okay, so carbohydrates are your friend when it comes to the performance of strength training activities, right? So, are you noticing a pattern here?
Yeah. In terms of not eating before workouts and things.
Yes. So you gotta. So when you fuel your workouts and when you focus your nutrition on performance rather than losing weight, which a lot of people when they try and get stronger, lose weight, have better sex life. Like they try and do everything. They try and do everything at once, and then they end up just not really doing anything that well. We got to focus on one thing. So certainly for your first while of training, focus on the performance of your gym routine, fueling that appropriately, and that means eating on the days that you're not working out as well. All right. So carbs are your friend. So could you give me some examples of what carbohydrate source is?
Well, the obvious one.
They're putting you on the spot here. Sorry.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, no pressure. A pasta's an obvious one, I guess. Oats would that be a carbohydrate? Having some porridge or overnight oats, something like that. I'm assuming fruit is more sugar than anything else, but is that also carbohydrate?
Fruit is the carbohydrates in fruit is fructose. I mean, it depends what fruit it is, but there'll be various different types of. I mean, yeah, keep going.
And then, yes, cereals, again, possibly more sugar than carbohydrate. Toast, yeah, bread,
Bread,
things like that. Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I'm actually probably hitting a wall now.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, carbohydrates. So rice, potatoes, bread, pasta, cereal, oats, fruit, sweets like sugary sweets. So like Haribo, Starburst. Like not that like I mean, if Haribo want to sponsor us, then we'll take it. But like the like so like what my point is that carbohydrates exist in a spectrum. And at one end of the spectrum, you've got your simple sugars. So that's the most simple sugar you can get is glucose, which is one what you would call that would be called a monosaccharide. So mono meaning one, saccharide meaning sugar. Okay, and then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got things like potatoes, oats, uh, whole wheat cereals, like things that, and they're what you would call starchy carbohydrates. So they're called polysaccharides. So poly just means many, sugar, so many sugars. Okay, so you've got this big long spectrum. How does this relate to fueling your workouts? Basically, the longer the time is out from your workout, the closer you want your carbohydrate food sources to be towards the starchy end of things. So you're and the reason we want that is they take longer to digest and they will be kind of drip fed in at a slower rate, so they have a more even blood sugar profile. Because usually they'll come with like especially things like oats, potatoes, fruit. They'll come with a fiber element as well. So that will slow down the intake of that sugar through your digestive system into your blood. So that'll slow that down. So it'll be like drip feeding. So we can have a large amount of carbohydrates, but they just don't all like 400 grams of carbs from potatoes is very, very different from 400 grams of carbs from Haribo.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. If you had 400 grams of carbs from Haribo, that's probably like 500 grams, like half a kilo of Haribo. That's probably going to make you feel very sick, and you're going to be going like, "Oh God, I can't!" Like, and you might even throw up. Whereas if you had 400 grams of carbs from potatoes, one, you're probably not going to be able to finish it all because you'll just be too full, and secondly, that might actually be like 2 or 3 meals worth of carbohydrates kind of spread throughout the day. So we can have this big, huge whack of sugar that gets the simple sugars in like sweets. They get absorbed very quickly into the bloodstream. They get digested very quickly because they're very. The body actually doesn't. It's like if you think about a starchy sugar as a big long chain, it's got to be broken down into the individual components to actually pass through the permeable wall of your intestine to get into the gut to blood in a barrier to actually be absorbed, right? I'm sure there's somebody out there is going to tell me that's wrong or there's some aspect of that is wrong, but that's a very 30,000 foot view of what actually happens with your digestion. So basically, it goes into your stomach, broken down by acid, your stomach acids. It's the start of it, and then it goes into your small intestine, and then large intestine, and then whatever's left after that is just excreted as waste, right? So with our workouts, we want to have our muscles filled with muscle glycogen. That's a very simple form of sugar, and then the circulating blood sugar is maybe not all that important, but you don't want it to be very low because then you're going to be a hypo. You're going to have like you want to have some circulating blood sugar just because that's can then shuttle and replenish the stores as they're being used. So if I like for example, if we're doing a bicep curl, we are using the muscle glycogen in the bicep to fuel that movement. And the blood is being pumped by our heart through our circulatory system through, and then replacing the energy that we are using with more carbohydrate. Okay, that's basically what we're doing there. Okay, so with your pre-workout nutrition, you want to make sure that you're well fueled with starchy carbohydrates the night before, if you're doing a workout first thing in the morning, and then perhaps some simple sugars in the morning. Now, I wouldn't suggest the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning is you have a pack of Haribo. So maybe some like fruit, like banana, apples, oranges. They have a little bit of fiber in them as well. That's really good for your digestive system. Actually, I saw a really interesting post on Instagram today about from Carl Schutt about talking about fiber is actually really good for your mental health in terms of the gut brain axis as it's known, which has become very popular over the last kind of 10 years or so. So the wee mark on my screen there. So what have we learned so far, Simon? Has any of that stood out to you? Is any of that new information?
Yeah, no, that's good, and possibly, years ago I was told that you lose more fat if you train on an empty stomach. So possibly partly come from misinformation, a long time ago. But
yeah,
I think what that's taught me is I need to have some form of carbohydrate in the morning. It sounds like having a banana and maybe a banana and a bagel, or something, a wholemeal bagel and a banana might be a good idea. And what about fluids? Is it good to drink a good bit of fluid as well?
Excellent question. So as much as a well-fueled muscle will take on will perform better, and you'll be able to lift more weight. And if you lift more weight, you get a bigger stimulus, so you help get. So if you like that small 1% margin that you're getting, if you compound that over 6 months or a year, you could be kilograms ahead on your lifts come out the end of that. The same thing happens with nutrition. So when you actually uptake a gram of carbohydrate into your muscles, it's somewhere between 3 and 4 grams of water is needed to make that process happen. So if you're dehydrated, your muscles will actually not uptake the fuel that it needs to, because the concentration levels, because that's how uptake works. It's like it's the concentration gradient between the two different sides of the cell membrane. That's what gets the carbohydrate to cross the cell membrane. If you don't have enough water, i.e. you're dehydrated, then that doesn't happen. And then there's also a second part to that, which is electrolytes. Electrolytes is what causes that gradient. So that's things like sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, the EMs, basically. So if you are deficient in those, that's going to be an issue as well. Not something that's going to cause you any real health problems or be deleterious to anything other than like performance until you get to very, very low levels. But most people are somewhat deficient in calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium at some point during the day. So an electrolyte supplement can really help with that as well. And there's various different types out there. We're not going to plug any particular one, but I'm sure if you go and if you're watching this on YouTube, you can go and have a look and you'll find ones. What you want, ones that are going to be dosed high enough to actually have an effect. Obviously, there's various health considerations there. If you are being kind of treated for high blood pressure and you've been asked to go on a low sodium diet, you don't want to be whacking 1,000 milligrams of sodium every morning before you go into your workout. So, but perhaps the reason that you have high blood pressure is because you're not going to the gym and you're not very strong and you don't have enough muscle mass. So there's kind of a chicken or the egg type situation there. Is like, are you hypertensive because you don't work out, or you don't work out because you're hypertensive? And I think one can solve the other problem. So not that I'm a doctor, that's not medical advice, that's just my thoughts on the situation. So carbs, hydration are incredibly important, okay? And the way I like to think about this is there's kind of four phases of nutrition that you have to kind of put your attention to. Okay, so there's pre-workout, intra. So a lot of people have heard of inter, like internet means like the net in between things. That's what the internet is. It's the connection between everything. So in pre-workout, intra-workout, inter-workout, and post-workout. So pre-workout we've kind of discussed, like that's your last meal and your hydration and stuff before you start your workout. Okay, intra-workout, as you go through your workout, you're going to be sweating. You're going to be electrolytes are going to come out of you because that's you sweat. You're just not just sweating out water. You're sweating out the salts, basically the electrolytes. So having a small amount of electrolytes to have as you drink, as you go through your workout is also very important. Maybe not initially, and it also depends how much you sweat. Like I sweat a lot when I work out, when I have basketball practice or when I do a weights workout at the gym. I've always just been very like a kind of sweaty man, especially if I exert myself quite a lot. So I need to make sure I'm well hydrated and well electrolyted. If we can turn electrolyted into a verb, or no, yeah. My grammar's escaping. Yeah. And then we have so that's intra workout, and then you also maybe want to have a little bit of carbohydrates. So that's where something like a sports drink can be quite good, or like a little pack of sweets or something. So like some Squashums or some Haribo or something. It doesn't have to be a lot, like 15 to 20 grams worth of carbohydrates. So that's 60 to 80 calories. That's not a lot because 1 gram of carbohydrate is 4 calories. So 60 to 80 calories to keep you feeling pepped up, to keep you feeling, get you through your workout, especially if your workout's taking a long time. And then we have inter-workout. So let's do post. Let's do post. Post-workout nutrition is one of these things where, I mean, have you ever heard of people talk about the anabolic window?
No, I haven't heard of that.
So this was a thing that basically was made up to try and sell protein shakes. I mean, there is some truth to it, but it's just so marginal that for 99% of people, it's not worth worrying about. Obviously, you've had your pre-workout nutrition, you've now done your workout, and now you've left the gym, you've had a shower, you're back in your civvies and your normal clothes, and it's lunchtime now, or you've like for example, you like what would your morning look like? When would you actually have your first meal after you go to the gym in the morning?
Yeah, so probably about an hour after I finished training. So yeah, walk back, have a shower, get myself ready, etc. So yeah, I'd say somewhere between 45 minutes to an hour. I typically have something like scrambled eggs on a bagel or something like that. Would be
so you're not waiting until lunchtime to have your first meal.
No.
Okay, that's fine. So you want to basically have high protein meal pretty soon after your workout. So your workout, hopefully you've done your sets of 5, you've done your squats, you've done your presses, your bench presses, you've done your deadlifts. You've sent a signal to your body that it needs to adapt. Now you have to give it the building blocks to adapt. So basically, until you have that meal, it's like imagine you're building a house. Until you have that first meal, basically like that's the first delivery of like bricks and wood and cement. And until you have that delivery, the workers are just like the brickies just standing there twiddling his thumb. The joiners are waiting with their tools, like we've got no wood to work with. The the project manager sitting there with his blueprint going, yeah, this is great, everything looks ready to go, and then nothing's here. So you got to then give it the raw materials to start to make that process happen. So having a high protein meal after your workout is very important. It doesn't have to be a protein shake as you leave the gym. That's not important. It can be if you want it to be, but that's not essential. It needs to be somewhere up to 2 hours post workout. You want to have that. And some research even says up to 4 hours after your workout. Basically, the signal you're given is like your body's primed to have a spike in muscle protein synthesis. Like everything's like ready, like to go. But if that protein doesn't arrive, that signal just gets wasted, and you just end up with more. Like it's not exactly how it works, but you just the potency of that signal gets reduced as you get further away from your workout. So if you had a workout in the morning and you didn't have any protein all day until dinner time, you've severely blunted your effect of the muscle protein synthesis. And that's how we adapt and get stronger. We build the new muscle tissue, okay? As well as like central nervous adaptations and all that kind of stuff. We do build a lot of our strength comes from building muscle, and we've got to eat to do that, okay? So that's post-workout nutrition. And then the next day, so let's say you work out, you're kind of doing 3 days a week. So you're doing like a day on, a day off, a day on, day off. We now have a day where we're not doing a workout. We still want to stay generally active. We want to try and hit a reasonable number of steps just for general health. It could even be like a 30-minute. It could be you just having an awareness of keeping moving throughout the day, or you could set a time aside like 2 or 3 times a day to actually go for a walk. So it can be structured, or it can just be incorporated as part of your everyday activity. But we're not sending a muscle building signal specifically on that day, but we still have a recovery aspect from our last workout so that we can adapt to our next workout. So we want to have high protein. Maybe you don't need as many carbohydrates, and we want to have some healthy fats as well, right? So from that aspect, the carbohydrates aren't that important in terms of like performance, but they might be important in terms of getting adequate calories in from the day. So you'd have a number of calories you're trying to hit that day. Let's just say 3,000 for easy maths. You hit 200 grams of protein. That takes you up to 800 calories. So then you have 2,200 calories to get from carbs and fats. And how you want to split that up depends on your personal preferences, depends on what foods you like, depends on what's available to you, all that kind of stuff. Sticking mostly to whole foods, things that you can cook from scratch, trying to avoid highly processed foods as much as possible. I know that's sometimes unavoidable just because maybe that day you're not as organized as well as you should be, all that kind of stuff. So we've talked about pre-workout, intra-workout, post-workout, and then inter-workout is just basically your rest days, your days in between your workouts. How does that sound? Does that sound?
This sounds
daunting?
A lot better. No, I mean actually it gives me a lot better, sort of clearer view of what I should be doing. So yeah, wake up, have something to drink, get hydrated, have some form of carbs and a bit of fruit before I go to the gym. get myself back, and once I'm showered and ready, try and have something within a couple of hours of finishing my workout, higher protein. I'm quite partial to a chicken omelette. So
chicken omelette, or okay, yeah, chicken.
Yeah.
Is that just eggs?
Yeah, that's it. Just just eat the chicken.
Yeah. That scrambled chicken. Yeah.
That's
So like that's a very 30,000 foot view of like nutrition, kind of feeling performance in terms of nutrition. Making sure, and then on top of that, just making sure you're drinking plenty of water. Drink when you're thirsty. You'll see people carrying about, I've got to drink this jug of stuff throughout the day. That can be useful for some people. All I've found that really useful for is like, here's me, I've got my big thing here. All I found that very useful is you've got to be careful when you're drinking a lot of water. You don't dilute your electrolytes too much, which I think we've talked about previously. I think your first ever workout with me, you went home and just like and then you didn't feel that great afterwards. So that kind of process is finding that Goldilocks zone where it's not too much, it's not too little. Finding that in that process. In terms of calories, it's hard to say. So there's two kind of confounding factors with calories. Like people say, "Oh, how many calories should I be eating?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, I've got to sit down and have a conversation with you for about 45 minutes to actually find out what's going on." I could give you some general guidelines. 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight on average. So if you're a 200-pound man, you should be trying, and this is for people who are working out with weights and trying to get stronger. Okay, this is not, if you are not going to the gym, not doing any physical activity, then you do not need to eat 200 grams of protein. You should be going to the gym and you should be doing something active, but until you start doing that, all that protein is just going to make you fat. So don't kid yourself. If there's anyone out there who's like, "Oh, I'm 200 pounds, I need to 200 grams of protein," but you're not lifting weights, you don't have any signal to use that protein to build muscle, or at least not as a high quality of a stimulus as there could be as you're lifting weights, right? So 1 gram per pound of body weight. On days that you're training, somewhere between like 1.8 to 2.2 grams per pound of carbohydrates. So a 200-pound man, that would be 360 to 440 grams of carbohydrates. From various different sources, you can incorporate some starchier sources there, some more simple sugar sources there, some fruit and everything in between, varieties of spice of life, after all. And your calorie amount, just whatever your calorie target for that day is, you can make the rest up with things. On the days you're not training, you could flip that round. So say you were getting, 200-pound man getting 360 grams of carbohydrates, that's 1,360, 1,440 gram calories from carbohydrates. You could flip that round on days you're not training and have a higher fat day. Obviously, you want to be healthy fats, so it's not just going to be McDonald's and Greg's, like sausage rolls from Greg's. We want to have like polyunsaturated fats like olive oil. Animal fats are absolutely fine, so like butter and things, but like we don't want those trans fats that are really, really not good for you, and things that are found in like highly prepared, highly processed type foods. and you could flip that round, or just for the sake of keeping things simple, just keep it the same. But yeah, that's all going to help you recover in between your workouts and get those adaptations to add up and accumulate over a number of weeks or months and get you stronger as you go. Right, so that's been about 40 minutes. Has that been enlightening for you?
Yeah, it's really useful. There's a science behind it. It's not just about don't eat or eat. It's actually, there's a science behind it, and yeah, that's given me a much better way of sort of framing it, both on the days I'm training the night before and the days I'm not. So no, it's really useful, mate. Thank you for that.
Yep. So on a more general level, like I mentioned at the start, how when people start, and God bless them, they want to get better at everything all at once. It's better to focus on one thing, get that thing cemented, then move on to the next thing. And getting strong should be a goal. Now, when you're new, you can actually slim down, get stronger, and get fitter all at the same time, because it only requires a little bit of stimulus for you to get a big improvement. But that'll maybe last for like 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. And there's probably, if you're watching this right now and you've had that, it's now coming into the second week of February, and you've been going and you've decided to have a goal of being healthier and fitter for 2025. I can guarantee now is the time when you're going to start going, oh, this is not as easy as it was 3 or 4 weeks ago. Things are getting harder. Can't add weight as well as I did at the start. I'm having to push a lot harder. The motivation is waning, and that's maybe because you're trying to do too much. So scale things back a little bit. If you've been going to the gym 4 days a week, try going for 3. If you've been going 3, try going for 2. If you've got yourself all the way down to 2, then maybe try going for 1. But sometimes in that, you have the danger of, if you only go to the gym once a week, then you just end up not going at all. So I would say try and go at least twice a week.
Yeah.
And try and just keep that routine up.
Yeah.
Until that's just automatic, and then maybe in a couple of months' time, all right, that feels pretty good now. I maybe need to add a third day into going to the gym. So I've had that exact situation happen with a client of mine so she sees me once a week for a one-to-one personal training session, and then she goes to the gym the second time by herself. And we're now at the stage where that habit is very well structured. She's not missed a work. I think she's missed like one workout in the last 3 months, and that's because she was ill. It wasn't that she just didn't turn up. She just was ill, and we rearranged her session. But now we're at the stage where, to continue to get stronger, she needs a bit more work. So actually, the 2 days, going from 2 days to 3 days, what a lot of people will make the mistake of is they'll increase their workload by 50%. Actually, what you want to do is take those 2 days, increase the total workload by 10%. So now you're at 110%, but it's split up over the 3 days. So you're actually only doing less on each day, essentially.
Yeah.
So but over the week, you're providing 10% more than you were before, and then keep that going for a couple of weeks, and then you can add a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's how so because 50% jump is, well, depends on the situation. If you're young, you're probably fine, but if you're a bit older, then it's not something you're going to be able to cope with that well. Okay. Yeah. Anything else you want to ask me, Simon? I realise I've done a lot of talking there.
No, that's. I mean, it's all really good information. So no, that's all good. I think over a couple of conversations now, I think we've covered nutrition and the hydration side of things, pretty well. So that's been really helpful for me.
Yep. Okay, right. Well, I'll stop there. If you so on YouTube, if you found that useful, or you think you might know someone who would find that useful, send it to them. Just get the link, send it to them. Make sure you hit like, and if you're not subscribed, please make sure you subscribe. The more good feedback I get from videos, I'll know where to put my energy and what people are enjoying and what people are getting the most benefit out from. Okay. Um, yeah, and that's us for today. And thanks for Simon for letting me talk at him for nearly an hour.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank
And
you.
some small interjections. But yeah, I kind of got in a roll there and didn't I just blacked out, and all of a sudden we're like an hour later. Okay, right. Cheers. Thanks everyone. I'll speak to you all later.